We are here with Billy Somerville on the digital stage, and Billy has been working with Big C for, oh gosh, 5, 6, 7 years now through a couple different
Years now.
spots. Yeah.
Years. I've lost count. A couple a
Yeah.
couple of agencies and many years. Yeah.
Yeah, and now you are the marketing director, am I right with that, at the Tampa Bay History Center. So welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm
So,
glad to be here.
we're very excited to talk with you, but tell us first a little bit about the Tampa Bay History Center and sort of what makes it unique and interesting.
Oh, well, the Tampa Bay History Center is located in Tampa, Florida, for those of you listening. And it was actually formed in 1989 by a very small group that was in Hillsborough County. And our mission really is to tell the story of historic Hillsborough County, which, believe it or not, covers around 15 counties across West Central Florida. So we have a pretty large geographic region that we focus on in our gallery space and in our research.
Must be an interesting place to talk about history and an
Absolutely.
interesting time in an interesting state.
Yes. And we kind of, we walk the line between what's happening now and what happened then. And we try to show it some, similarities.
That's interesting. One thing I've been noticing that you've been doing a lot lately, and we watched you go through COVID and all of that, and you recently started talking about all the live streaming that you're doing of all your programming and events. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came to be and sort of what you're doing there?
Well, it's the age-old story of COVID made us pivot, and
Mhm.
we are, continuing with that because it was so successful and it really did fulfill one of our core values, which is accessibility. We live stream and record all of our public lectures that are free and open to the public every month, and we put them on our YouTube channel, which is at Tampa Bay History Center. And every month we get hundreds of people that tune in live and hundreds more that watch online afterwards. So it's a great story of how we're able to share what goes on inside the History Center with everyone on any device.
I think it's an interesting topic because we don't think a lot of the times we think about the live streaming as a replacement for the in-person events, and we forget that it's also a lot about accessibility and expanding your mission and your footprint into a world of people who wouldn't otherwise be able to step foot inside. So I love that. Um, did you feel like there was a high barrier to entry to get started with that?
I think that it was more of a mindset. So, we were used to kind of doing things, okay, this is going to take place in the classroom, or that we're going to need 60 chairs for this lecture. When in reality, we could open it up to many more people just by recording it or live streaming it. One of the sites that we're working with is offsite from the History Center, which is on Water Street in downtown Tampa. And just a few miles north, we have another location that we're activating the space in. And from day one, we've been able to record and stream those programs, and we're able to triple the capacity for that programming. And it's actually at a historic location, which can only fit around 120 people max. So it's kind of a tight space, but we're able to reach 400 on YouTube.
Hey, Billy, I have a question for you, actually. Not being local to Tampa Bay myself, I'm always curious, like, how do you feel your mission to reach out outside of the local community? Like, are you finding that you're now starting to be able to reach, in this post-pandemic period, people like myself who may not have heard of the Tampa Bay History Center and now suddenly know about it and want to learn more?
Yeah, we're in a unique position because when stories break, for instance, locally, sometimes they do go national. And one of those stories was about Black cemeteries and how they were erased in the 1950s. In 2019, the History Center was instrumental in really uncovering a lot of the cemeteries locally that had been covered up or built upon. And we did so through our extensive map archive. We have roughly 8,000 or so maps in our collection, and 6,000 of those are digitized and available online. So getting back to this story, we did a program 2 years ago with Dr. Antoinette Jackson on our free lecture series, Florida Conversations, and we streamed that live and have posted that to YouTube. Fast forward 2 years later, There's new grave sites that are being discovered, new work that's being uncovered, and we're able to really show that content and direct people to that content again. So it does have a national stage, especially with organizations that are working across different states. For instance, Dr. Jackson's work is multi-state at this point. So they're working at a national level, and we're able to help provide information to that.
Yeah, I love that because I mean, it just it enables you to kind of affect other communities and have communities to kind of share in their knowledge and their expertise and grow the whole cultural center as a whole.
Absolutely.
When I think about the people who are watching from home, I'm thinking it might be an older population. Is that the case?
I just looked at our analytics today, and it's interesting because the typical museum goer, you think, is more of a lifelong learner, someone that maybe has more time on their hands, maybe they're retired. But we are actually seeing our demographic shift, and visitors to our website are now skewing younger. So we're kind of reaching those 34 to 22-year-olds that we may have missed before. And we're also seeing an increase in organic search results. And also referrals to our blog.
That was going to be my next question, was how do people find out about like the live streamed events, and especially the folks who know that they're not able to attend from an accessibility perspective? How are they finding the digital content?
Yeah, so we do a great job at really getting earned media, and then pairing that with organic social. We try to make sure that we're accessible on all platforms, and we've chosen YouTube as our go-to because it is on every platform. I
You
can
have
watch
the
it on
reach.
my Amazon Fire TV. I can watch it on my phone, and it does show up in search results very easily. So that's really been how we're kind of reaching folks. And we also see a great response in our email newsletters. We have a very active and engaged list that we email on a regular basis. We make sure that they know and value our emails as not just your typical newsletter, but something that you're going to want to open and click through.
I love that because that's my advice to so many of the nonprofits that we work with, is to send more emails. I talk about it all the time. They always think, well, we do our e-newsletter once a month, so we've got it covered. No, that's not enough email. Not enough email.
Yeah.
Got to do more.
You can definitely do more than once a month.
Yep, for sure. So digital formats, how is that helping you expand your audience? I mean, is that how you're reaching the younger audience, or do you think it's just a sort of word of mouth, or things are trickling out, they're seeing the earned media? It's a
I
hard
think
thing to do.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a big response on YouTube in particular. Our subscribers have jumped significantly over the last year. We've also doubled the amount of emails that we're sending out, by the way, in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And I would also say that our educators, so our population of teachers that plan field trips to the History Center, we try to provide them with really good content that they can use in their classroom. So whether that's a lesson plan or a virtual field trip, we try to make sure that they know they can bookmark us and find something that's aligned to state standards. So as an institution, we're trying to see what is the value that the end user is getting from it. And that's been really the recipe to success, is making sure that we have that end user in mind.
I was just going to ask, actually, tied to that, one of the things that came to mind for me was, what kind of updates do you see coming up for your website? Obviously, teacher resource is a fantastic one. What are the things that you have planned coming up in the near future that we can look forward to on site?
Yeah, so now that we've got the core of the website updated and it is responsive in all the best ways, and it's something that we're really proud of to show off, we are working on the user journey from the point of sale. So our CRM, how that ties into it, that user journey. So when they click the ticket tab, what is that shopping cart experience like? And that's really what we're drilling down to now. We've got several vendors lined up, and we're trying to make sure that that experience is as optimized, is as user-friendly. And for all of us online shoppers, it is a one-click, purchase. So I think from that standpoint, we are kind of targeting that and getting to the point where we're able to show really online sales convert.
I'm curious about your integrations because a lot of our clients come to us with, they've got their fundraising in one tool and their ticket sales in another tool, and they might even have an e-commerce platform somewhere over here, and then their volunteers are using this over here. So what tools are you using, and are they all integrated?
That is a great question, and I know that from many years in the nonprofit world, it is extremely hard to find a one-size-fits-all solution. I honestly don't think one exists. I would be shocked. Everyone's situation is unique, but between your CRM, your volunteer management, all of that needs to talk to itself. And I've worked at organizations where we spend a lot of time making those connections happen. And it's not necessarily a fast process. It's not something that is going to be the flip of a switch or, okay, we're going to sign up with this vendor. There's a lot that goes into the back end. So I would say that from our standpoint, we try to make sure that our point of sale is all in the same database. So whether that's our membership, we have a museum store, for instance, whether you're buying tickets and walking up to the visitor services counter or you're buying tickets online, we want that all to be in the same system and obviously processed the same. But all of those other components have to feed into that as well. So that's really our next step, is making sure that from a user standpoint, from a member standpoint, they don't see a difference. We may know that there are 3 different tools at play, but we want to make sure that the member knows that they can go to that portal and they can update their information and keep giving to the institution that they love.
Keep giving.
That's a great approach. That's a great way to see it because, also organizations change, software changes. So if you can be swapping in something in or out, but always maintaining the central database, then you're setting yourself up for like a good future, for the website or whatever platform you work.
Yeah, I've worked with organizations as we've transitioned from one tool to the next, and it is not an easy process. It's not. We're not going to sugarcoat it, but the benefits far outweigh the cost and time and energy, because you're going to have a product at the end of the day that's going to work well for not only your team, but for your donor. And I think that's where the difference is. Even something as simple as email automation, you've got to make sure that that is in sync with your donor database so that, your records are correct, the donor preferences are being honored, for instance. All of that's really important. And I think as marketers, we are really in a tough spot when it comes to making sure that the organization is set up for the future.
Yeah, it is tough because there are people, and we hear their voices loudly when they're upset with getting emails they didn't sign up for. And then there's people like me who just hit the delete button or move on through. And, you got my email, I'm putting it out on the internet. So that's what I'm expecting anyway. So it's funny. But yeah, having that sensitivity up front, I think, especially with donors, is really important. You mentioned membership a little bit, and I'm curious how you're converting visitors to members right now. What does that flow look like? Do you have a process?
Yeah, we have a pretty formal process on our membership team, and we're now working on getting that to work online as well. So, when you visit the History Center, you're going to hear about our membership program and all the fantastic benefits that it offers year-round. What we're working on now is really getting those folks that maybe have stepped foot in the door, our warm audience, and taking them to the next level as far as engagement goes with becoming a member for the first time or just renewing. And that's really our next step as well, with making sure that our online tools are optimized and really ready to go.
Are you producing any content that is specific to members?
We have now started a monthly blog post where we talk about what is featured this month as far as a member benefit. And as museums and institutions, we have different reciprocity agreements with each other, and we're a part of different organizations like CIRM and NARM. If you're a Smithsonian affiliate, for instance, their different benefits. So we try to make sure that every month our members get that blog post and they see that, hey, my member card is good here, and for different discounts and visitor passes.
Oh, that's a great side benefit of the cross member. I've seen those like on city passes and things like that. I hadn't considered that. That's a good idea. So I'm curious, we talked about tools and tech, but you didn't mention the names of any of the tools. Are any that you would want to, are there any that you think are particularly, I mean, we can talk about the big behemoth that powers all, but let's talk about the fun stuff that's come out recently. Is there any neat new tech that you're playing with that you think is worth sharing?
So I think that we're all, kind of in the sandbox with ChatGPT and learning all of the fun things that it can do, myself included. And, from a marketer standpoint, it's this, shiny new tool that we can use. I think from an institution standpoint, we kind of got to look at that and see, okay, what is generative AI and what kind of content does it produce? Is it accurate? Is it something that we need to flag? So those are all conversations that continue to happen, and as institutions become more familiar with it, I think that it's just going to be better for the organizations overall.
I think there's some interesting lessons there. I mean, I think a theme that keeps coming up here, and maybe you can talk to it a little bit more, is the idea of kind of cross-pollinating different ideas. I stumbling with words, but that happens. But this idea of like learning from different institutions and learning from each other, and I'm sure that as people start to share their findings or their successes, people will start to use these tools better and better.
Funny you should say that, Warren. We have a huge research study coming up. We did a big survey in the fall, and we've got a research study that I actually just got to approve. Are using AI right now, and then some tools and tips and tricks on using it. My biggest go-to is, if you're not already on the ChatGPT Teams version, you should be. It's $5 more a month, but it's also protective of your data. So you're not actually feeding the public LLM, so that when you're putting things into it, you can be reusing some of that data, but it's not feeding into the public sphere, which is nice. So, but that's one of my favorites. So, Billy, I have a question. What other museums and institutions do you follow that you think are doing some really cool things in the digital space?
So my new favorite account to follow, and
I'm going to write this down.
I work for a history museum, but there is a new campaign that is about to launch nationwide, and it's called Made by Us. So their website is historymadebyus.org. And they really are looking to fill that gap, that void in museum goers, where, you go on a field trip and then we don't see you again for 25 years. But they're really trying to engage that post-college, crowd that is still active and local and civic minded. And obviously this is an election year, so there's lots going on there. So their mission is really unique, and I would encourage everyone to follow them, Made by Us, because they are really championing organizations around the country that are connecting local history to national events, and in a meaningful way.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to go look them up.
So a question I had, do you have any tips specifically for digital marketing, to increase donations, ticket sales, anything along those lines? Any kind of tips you want to offer to people who'd be watching right now?
Yeah. So I would say that my background too has been in creative services. Then I worked for a TV station for a while. I was in print design, and now here I am doing, digital marketing. I would say that you've always got to ask. If you aren't asking your donor for what you need, then what is the call to action there? How is your mission going to be sustainable? So I feel like you've always got to ask, even if it's a uncomfortable ask for you, and kind of know your audience, know what that ask should be. the right ask at the right time.
I think that's super important. I have actually, I just moved to Asheville, North Carolina, 2.5 years ago now. And I've been getting involved in my community, and I interact with, I'm a member of the AFP up here. I'm getting more and more engaged with the local nonprofit scene. And all the time I'm thinking to myself, why has no one asked me yet to fill in the blank? And so now, of course, I've been invited to 16 different boards, and there's like an influx of too many things. But it was a question for me. I see so many people that are just afraid to ask. And there's a lot of us on the other side who are saying, I wish somebody would just ask me, because I don't know how to get involved in this stuff myself. So I think that's an important question. Hey, could you give us $5 more than you gave us last time? That would be great too.
I think I just heard all the development and advancement teams around the country cheering for the marketing teams right now. So, really, if there is a development professional on your team, or maybe someone's in philanthropy or a grant writer, those are the folks that I love to have lunch with and just ask them what the donors are talking to them about, what they're interested in, what matters to them. Because obviously you're going to have your more higher tier donors that are really looking at this as a community investment. And then you're going to have your more transactional donors that's like, oh, I do want to get the benefits of being a member of the museum and use my membership at different institutions. Those are two different audiences. So really connecting with those coworkers and making sure that all your colleagues are on the same page is really important. And I know that for all the organizations that I've worked with, that's been the key factor in our success, is that marketing and our digital marketing team is working with our philanthropy and our advancement team
to increase that engagement. How important is like storytelling in that process?
Yeah, I think that your audience is going to want to learn something from you that's more than just that ask, right? So how you kind of lead into that is going to be with a story. And from donor appeals to even just simple newsletters, I think we've got to be cognizant of how we're curating those and what content we're using. I know that even for my monthly newsletter, I try to look for a theme or a way to kind of connect all of the dots, when I know that a lot of it is just, I need to make sure that I've got these tours in the newsletter. Well, is there something specific, a keyword that I can work in there? And then also in your program description, making sure that those tell a story as well, whether that's through direct quotes or snappy headlines. I think, we're fortunate that we're a history museum and we've got incredible content to share. But even if you're an organization that has a really great, passionate mission, you can talk to your donors and also the people that you serve and find out what makes their lives different because of you.
I love that. One thing I've been seeing a lot of lately that I absolutely adore is sort of the museum talk side of TikTok. Do you ever watch museum talk?
I do. And I think I send some to our collections team in the archive on a regular basis. And we do have a chuckle about it, just because, we're all kind of, this is a science for museum professionals. So, making sure that things are labeled in the session correctly is always important.
It is. Do you guys have a TikTok channel?
We do have a TikTok channel, and if you go to it, it is at Tampa Bay History, but you won't find anything because we're holding it. Yes.
You're holding. It's a good idea though. I just have been loving all the behind the scenes content that a lot of museums are putting out there, and a lot of curators and collections people are just talking about learning about just how you move a painting from one spot to another is just so fascinating to me, and how you handle things in the collection. So I love that stuff. I think it's opening up a world that people didn't know existed, and hopefully that's part of how you're attracting a younger audience too. I think it's neat. People have access to a lot more information about what's going on in the world around them. All right, I have one more question for you. Well, I have a couple more, but number one is, as you're looking forward at new sort of exhibits or collections or things that are going on at the History Center itself, are you looking at how soon are you thinking about what the digital aspect of that might be and how you're going to build that? Maybe it's on the website, or what kinds of programming around it is going to exist, that kind of a thing.
The age-old question: does the marketing campaign come before or after the exhibit is conceived?
Mhm.
I would say that our situation is pretty unique because our creative director works on developing the exhibit graphics with our curators. So we have really a front row seat to that process, and we are thinking about things very far in advance. And I would say that if you are a marketer at an institution, you need to definitely take your curators out to lunch and find out what's on their mind, what they're thinking about, and what those themes are going to be, because your comms calendar is going to have to be updated as soon as they roll out their next show.
Yeah, what's so fascinating about that is that one of the best things about any kind of cultural institution, and museum specifically, is telling stories is like the easiest thing that you can do. You have thousands upon thousands of stories that most digital marketers would die for.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to pick just one.
Yeah.
I would say that our current exhibit is about Florida in the 1920s, and it is, do we talk about real estate and the housing boom? Do we talk about redlining with real estate? Do we talk about fashion and pop culture in the 1920s, or the mob scene in Tampa, which may or may not have happened? So there's all sorts of stories that we could bring to light, and it's definitely something that we kind of have to pick, and as this campaign evolves over a year, we definitely do try to touch on each of those.
I love it. So if you had unlimited budget to do whatever you wanted to do with your digital assets, whatever that looks like, what would you do with it?
Well, this sounds like a fever dream for any nonprofit marketer, because an unlimited budget, where do you start? There's so much. I think I would start with the user experience. So I would make sure that my digital properties are all up to snuff and ready to go for that next campaign. I really want our museum goers, our visitors, our members to really think of our website as a resource and something that's easy to use, easy to navigate, and something that they know they're going to go back to time and time again for new content. So I would definitely make sure that the foundation for that is in place. And sometimes that's custom development. Sometimes that's hiring, an agency to kind of work through that process with your team and have some outside insight. That's where I would start. But I think, having an unlimited budget would definitely be
team members. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can kind of brainstorm out all the different things you can do, because unlimited budget. Do you have $1 trillion? Do you have, a bill? Like, what is unlimited?
I know. You could fill that TikTok channel.
Yeah. Or you could buy TikTok and turn it into only yours.
Absolutely.
I have one quick question, hopefully ties it a little bit into what we're talking about here, which is, are you now considering, or would you be considering, like, any kind of experiences that don't tie back to the local community? In other words, there's tons of people out there who unfortunately might never make it to the History Center. And is there an emotional connection that you can try to make or want to make with those people that can become a part of a growing community, of a larger community that you might not ever reach in person?
Yeah, I think probably the audience that we reach the most that may not necessarily be local are cartography enthusiasts. So we have a large map collection that is online, and we just continue to add to the collection and are buying maps from all over the world, thanks to some very generous donors. And that is really something that sets us apart as an institution, and it also elevates us a little bit to that stage where we are sharing those with the world and do contribute to research around the country and internationally.
That's fascinating.
That's very cool. Well, Billy, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time talking to us about what you're doing at the Tampa Bay History Center. I think it's super fascinating.
Awesome. Thank you, Billy, for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thanks.